It started like any other celebration. The rooftop bar buzzed with energy lit by strings of warm bulbs and the distant hum of the city below. Our firm had finally wrapped up the Barton Creek project, a sleek, high-profile development that took over a year to complete. Everyone was there, the partners, interns, even a few local press people. It was supposed to be a night of recognition, of clinking glasses and remember when stories. But instead, it became the night I stopped recognizing my wife. Allison arrived separately. Said she had errands to run after work and would meet me there. That wasn't unusual, we often came to events in different cars. But the moment she stepped off the elevator, something felt off. I know her. I know the way she walks when she's confident, the way her smile means something real versus when she's performing for a crowd. Tonight, it was all performance. She wore a black silk dress, one that had hung untouched in our closet since she tried it on and shook her head, saying it was too much. She used to call it her one-day dress, joking she'd wear it when she felt bold enough. Apparently, today was that day. The neckline plunged deeper than she used to be comfortable with, and the back dipped low, revealing the freckle near her spine I always thought was cute. But something about the way she wore it tonight felt less like a revelation and more like a costume. She wasn't looking for me when she came in. Her eyes scanned the crowd, skipping over me completely until they landed on Ryan. Ryan, fresh out of grad school, tall, fit, eager to make a name for himself. He'd been with the firm for maybe a year. Bright guy, full of ideas. I liked him well enough. But tonight, watching my wife beeline toward him like he was the only person in the room, that was the first time I ever truly noticed him. She touched his arm when she spoke, laughing at things that didn't seem funny. Her hand lingered on his shoulder just a beat too long. Then she reached up and adjusted his tie delicately like a move rehearsed, practiced. I saw her lean in close, say something only he could hear. Whatever it was made him smirk. I stood maybe 15 feet away, talking to Carla from logistics, who was saying something about the concrete delays we hit last March. I nodded, pretending to listen, but my eyes kept drifting toward them. My gut clenched tighter with every little gesture I saw. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid. But it wasn't just me who noticed. Kyle, one of the partners, nudged me and said with a grin, "Looks like Ryan's got a fan." He chuckled. I didn't. I shrugged, tried to play it cool. She's just being friendly. But even as I said it, I felt something shift. Not in her, no, that part had already happened. The shift was in me. A slow, creeping realization that I didn't know what was going on anymore. That maybe I hadn't known for a while. The rest of the night blurred by. I remember watching her glide through the crowd, always gravitating back to Ryan. I remember her brushing past me once without stopping, offering just a cursory, "Hey babe," as she floated by. I remember how everyone kept saying how great the party was, how successful the project turned out. And all I could think about was how my own wife looked like she belonged in someone else's orbit. At one point, I stepped outside onto the balcony to get some air. Austin's skyline glowed against the dusk, the kind of view that normally made me feel grateful. Tonight, it just felt empty. I leaned against the railing, the condensation from my beer dripping onto my hand. I stood there for a while, letting the sounds of the party fade behind me. That's when I realized this wasn't new. This wasn't some sudden thing. I just hadn't wanted to see it before. Allison used to hold my hand in public. She used to lean into me when she laughed. Somewhere along the way, that stopped. Slowly. Quietly. Like someone turning the volume down on a song until you forget it was ever playing. When I came back inside, I saw her and Ryan again, now seated at the corner of the bar. Her hand was on his arm and she was laughing a head back, eyes sparkling. He whispered something to her and she leaned in closer. It was an asterisk mate. To an asterisk mate. And when she finally caught me watching, she didn't flinch. She just gave me a lazy smile like I was the one interrupting. No one said anything. No one pulled me aside to check on me. They all saw it and either didn't care or didn't want to get involved. By the time we left, I was numb. I told her I'd meet her at home. I needed a minute, I said. She didn't question it. Driving home that night, I stared at the taillights in front of me, wondering when exactly I had become this, someone suspicious, someone insecure. But even in the silence of my car, I couldn't pretend anymore. Something had changed. Not just in her, but in me. A kind of emotional snap. Subtle, but permanent. She got home an hour after me. Said she stayed behind to help clean up. I said nothing. Just nodded. She kissed me goodnight like nothing had happened. I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling. That party was meant to celebrate a project coming to life. Instead, it was the moment mine started to fall apart. I didn't sleep much after the party. I laid there next to her, the ceiling fan above us spinning slow and lazy, ticking faintly as if mocking the silence between us. Allison was out cold, her breathing even, one arm flopped across the bed. And I just stared at the ceiling like it held the answers I'd ignored for far too long. The images from that night kept replaying, her laughter, the way she looked at Ryan like he was the only one in the room. It wasn't the dress. It wasn't even the tie-fixing moment. It was the familiarity. The casual way she touched him. The comfort in her movements. That wasn't a new flotation, it had history. And suddenly it felt like everything I'd brushed aside was crashing down on me all at once. It's strange how hindsight sharpens things. That night, the dam broke and my mind flooded with moments I'd buried under the weight of trust. I remembered the cologne first. A few weeks ago, she came home late from work claiming she'd been stuck in a client debrief. When I hugged her, there was a smell clinging to her jacket, sharp, clean, distinctly masculine. Not mine. Not even close. I asked about it, half joking, and she laughed it off. Probably from the Uber, she said. Or one of the guys from the office. You know how they crowd in meetings. I let it go. Then there was Sarah. Her best friend since college, or so I thought. Allison started spending the night at Sarah's place once every couple of weeks. Girl nights, she called them. Wine, movies, face masks. But I could never reach her during those times. Her phone would be off or go straight to voicemail. And when I asked, she'd always say something vague, oh, we were just catching up, or I must have fallen asleep early. It never felt right. But I didn't push. She started waking up earlier, too, claimed she was getting into morning runs. Said it helped her clear her head before work. At first, I admired the dedication. But I noticed things. She'd come back looking refreshed, energized. Her face would be lightly flushed, makeup somehow already perfect. And the weirdest part? She'd skip the shower at home. Just towel off and change like she'd already cleaned up somewhere else. I asked once. She smiled and kissed my cheek. You overthink everything, she said. I stopped asking. Then there was the laptop. Allison used to leave it open on the couch or dining table all the time, mostly work documents, Pinterest boards, online shopping tabs. But about 2 months ago, she set a password. When I asked why, she brushed me off. Work's tightening up security, she claimed. They're implementing new protocols. Fair enough. But she also started angling her phone away from me when we sat together. Notifications would light up the screen and she'd flip it over without checking them. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone needs privacy, right? I remembered the messages, too, those odd little texts she'd get during dinner or when we were watching TV. She'd glance at them, grin, then type something out quickly and tuck her phone away. When I asked who it was, she'd always say just work stuff or Sarah being dramatic again. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Looking back, it was all right there. Hiding in plain sight. Like the time I came home early on a Thursday half-day due to a canceled inspection. I texted her on the way, but she didn't reply. When I walked in, I heard her in the bedroom. She was on the phone, but her tone dropped the second she realized I was home. She hung up fast, came out with a too bright smile. Said it was just a call with a supplier. I didn't question it. I kissed her forehead and asked what she wanted for dinner. God, I hate how easily I accepted her lies. The truth is, I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. I thought every marriage had its dips. We'd been through rough patches before, grief, money tension, that period when we were trying to get pregnant and it just wasn't happening. We made it through. We always did. But this was different. This wasn't life happening to us. This was her choosing to let me drift away. I started replaying conversations in my head, searching for cracks. There was one a month ago. We were sitting on the porch, drinking wine, watching the sun go down. I asked her if she was happy. Not in a dramatic way. Just curious. She paused too long before answering. Yeah, she said eventually, I's not meeting mine. I think I'm just restless. Maybe I need a change. A new project. Something exciting. She was talking about work. Or at least, I thought she was. Now I wonder if she meant Ryan. I stayed up the rest of that night, flipping through mental files, realizing how many things I'd ignored. The moments that didn't make sense. The weird mood swings. The fake smiles. The way she seemed tired all the time, emotionally, like she was living 2 lives and wearing herself thin trying to keep them apart. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted it to be stress or burnout or even just some mid-30s identity crisis. But deep down I knew. This wasn't me being paranoid. This was me finally waking up. By sunrise, I hadn't slept a wink. I watched Allison stir, stretch, check her phone with a soft smile like she was waking up to something or someone worth smiling for. Then she glanced over and saw me staring. She blinked, surprised. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Just couldn't sleep. She kissed my forehead and got up to shower. As she walked away, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She didn't notice. I did. It was a preview text. Just a name, Ryan, and a heart emoji beside it. I didn't check the message. I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at it. And I felt something inside me fracture, quietly, completely. There's a point where suspicion stops being just a feeling and becomes a fact, an anchor tied to your gut, dragging everything else down with it. That morning, staring at Ryan's name on my wife's phone screen, I felt that anchor drop. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need a dramatic reveal. I already knew. But knowing and proving are two different beasts. I needed certainty. Not for a confrontation, not even for revenge, but because I needed to hear my sanity echo back at me. I needed evidence that the instincts I'd buried for months were right all along. So that night, after dinner, while Allison was taking a bath, her new self-care ritual, I made my move. Her phone was left charging in the living room and her laptop sat on the kitchen table, closed but not logged out. She rarely left both unguarded. Maybe she was getting careless. Or maybe she was daring me. I installed a tracker on her phone. Nothing invasive, just a GPS app masked as a system update. I knew it was wrong. I hated the idea of crossing that line. But the truth had already been compromised, I was just catching up to it. The next few days were uneventful. Normal, almost. She smiled more. Asked if I wanted to go hiking that weekend like we used to. Made French toast Saturday morning, my favorite. For a split second I wondered if I was wrong, if I had misread everything. But I kept watching. Every morning I checked the tracker before work. Office. Gym. Coffee shop. Office again. Everything looked right on paper. Until Tuesday. That morning she left around 9 a.m., said she was meeting a client across town. I checked the tracker from my truck before heading to the site. She wasn't at the client's location. She wasn't even near downtown. She was moving west, out toward the city's edge. At first, I thought maybe a new project site. But the dot stopped near the outskirts. A hotel. A business-class place, not flashy, just out of the way enough to be private. I sat there staring at the screen, hoping it was a glitch. Then her location disappeared. She turned off her phone. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I drove across town, pulled into a parking lot across from the hotel, and waited. My hands shook the whole way there. Not from anger, not even from heartbreak, but from a strange, icy calm that settled over me like armor. I knew what I was about to see. I was just waiting for it to appear in full color. Around 11:45, a familiar silver sedan pulled up. Ryan's car. I knew it from work. He always parked crooked. Sure enough, he took up part of the next space. He stepped out first, sunglasses on, phone in hand. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. Then she got out of the passenger seat, adjusting her dress, the same navy blue wrap dress she used to wear on our date nights. Her hair was up, earrings swinging as she laughed at something he said. They didn't even look around. He touched her waist as they walked toward the hotel entrance. Not in a careful way. In a practiced way. Then he leaned in. She kissed him. It wasn't some brief peck. It was slow. An asterisk mate. The kind of kiss that doesn't belong to people sneaking around. It belonged to people who had already accepted the consequences. Or no longer cared. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I picked up my phone, zoomed in, and took 3 photos. One of them at the car, one mid-walk, one at the kiss. I watched them disappear through the lobby doors. And then I sat there. For maybe an hour. Maybe 2. I don't really know. Eventually, I drove. Not home. I ended up near Lake Travis at a pull-off we used to visit during our first year together. Back when we had picnics and shared ice cream cones and talked about having a little girl one day. The lake was black that evening. Still. Deep. I stayed there until the sun dipped behind the water and the stars started bleeding through the clouds. My phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Allison. A few texts. Hey, stuck in traffic. Be home soon. Can you order takeout? Miss you. I didn't respond. I didn't even read the rest. I let the silence between us finally speak. When I got home, it was late. The house was dark. She was asleep in bed, curled up like a kid, the same way she used to when she had a bad day. I stood at the door and watched her breathe, the rise and fall of her back. I didn't hate her. I envied her. I envied how peacefully she could sleep while lying through her teeth. The next morning, she was chipper, kissed me on the cheek, asked what I wanted for dinner, said she was thinking of trying a new yoga class. I just nodded. I think that scared her more than if I'd said something, because she knew me, and she knew that when I stopped talking, I was building something. The day after I followed them to the hotel, I started collecting everything. Not my things. Hers. Not clothes, not mementos. Evidence. I got up before Allison. Left the house without saying much. Just a quiet, "Don't wait up tonight." She smiled, kissed my cheek again. Like the past 24 hours hadn't existed. Like we were still living the life we built on trust. But that illusion was gone. And I was done pretending. I drove to the rental office and signed a month-to-month lease on a one-bedroom apartment downtown. It wasn't much. A third-floor walk-up with scuffed hardwood and a kitchen stuck in the late 90s. But it had a lock that only I held the key to. That was enough. Back home, while she was at work or wherever she claimed to be, I went into full retrieval mode. I printed the photos I'd taken at the hotel, blew them up to full letter size. I pulled the GPS logs from the tracking software, time-stamped and geotagged. Then I dug deeper. I went through our shared tablet and synced it with her cloud backups. And that's when I found the rest. There were fragments of emails, drafts never sent, deleted texts that had been backed up. Not everything, but enough to fill in the gaps. Flirty messages. Hotel confirmations. Uber receipts that didn't match the stories she told me. One message to Ryan simply said, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about your hands." I didn't print that one. I didn't need to. It was burned into my memory now. I gathered it all into a folder, red, like the one she used for her design sketches. I labeled it, in quiet black ink, Truth. I slid it into the kitchen drawer where she kept the chargers and random receipts, right behind a stack of expired coupons. Then I packed a duffel bag, left my keys on the table, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. The folder was the note. For the next 2 days, I lived in silence. No music, no TV. Just me, the echo of empty walls, and the kind of thoughts that creep in when everything you believed in collapses quietly instead of exploding. Her messages started the same night. First just, "Hey, where are you?" Then, "Is everything okay? Please call me." Then longer ones. "Landon, I found the folder. Please let's talk." "I'm sorry. It wasn't what you think." I didn't reply. More came. "Please don't do this. I know I messed up, but you're not blameless either." We drifted. I felt alone. I didn't mean for this to happen. Ryan didn't mean to hurt you. That one made me laugh out loud. The idea that Ryan, the guy who kissed my wife outside a budget hotel, was now a victim in this story. Then came the bargaining. "Can we at least talk before you make any decisions? We owe each other that, right?" And eventually the anger. "So you're just walking away? After everything? You're going to blow up our whole life over one mistake. You coward. You always were." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because it came from the same mouth that used to whisper "I love you" in the dark, long after the world had gone quiet. I didn't block her. I just stopped engaging. I didn't want closure. I didn't want answers. I just wanted distance. Sometimes silence isn't passive. Sometimes it's the loudest thing you can give someone. I went back to work after the weekend. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. I showed up, did my job, nodded politely during meetings. The guys cracked the usual jokes about Monday blues. No one noticed the ring was gone, except for Carla. She pulled me aside on Wednesday, said softly, "You okay?" I nodded. Getting there. She didn't press. That night, Allison showed up at the new place. I didn't tell her the address. She must have tracked my location or asked around. I heard the knock just after 10 p.m. It was raining lightly. She stood there in a hoodie and jeans, mascara smudged. I didn't let her in. We stood in the hallway under the flickering bulb while she talked. "I'm not here to fight," she said, voice low. "I just need to say this." I crossed my arms. "I messed up," she continued. "I know that. And I know I don't deserve anything from you, not forgiveness, not a second chance. But this isn't who I am. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I didn't plan to fall for him. It just happened. I didn't respond." She stepped closer. "You stopped seeing me, Landon. A long time ago. You stopped really being with me. And I know that doesn't excuse anything, but you weren't present. Not for a long time. That part hurt more than I expected. Because there was truth in it. I had let parts of us fade. I stopped asking her about her sketches, her projects. I got busy, then tired, then detached. We both did. But I didn't cheat. I'm sorry, she said again. For everything. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to say it. I nodded. Just once. Then I shut the door. She didn't knock again. 1 week after that night in the hallway, she came back. I heard the knock just after noon on a Saturday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was halfway through sanding down an old dresser I'd picked up at a garage sale. Something about the scratches in the wood felt familiar, like time had worn it down, but not quite ruined it. I guess that's why I kept working on it. Restoration was simpler than repair. You don't have to trust the wood to be something it's not, you just make it honest again. But when I opened the door, there was nothing honest about what I saw. Allison stood there, eyes red, holding a white envelope in one hand and her phone in the other. Her body was stiff, like she'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times. I need to talk to you, she said quietly. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, arms folded. She took a breath, then offered the envelope. I didn't want to do this over text. But I had to tell you. I might be pregnant. My brain didn't quite process it at first. The word just hung there between us like fog. I blinked. What? She nodded. I found out yesterday. I haven't been to the doctor yet, but I've taken 3 tests. I didn't reach for the envelope. I just stared at her. My pulse slowed. Everything in me shut down like a power outage in a thunderstorm. I wanted to tell you first, she added. I don't know how far along I am, but I think it could be yours. Could be, I repeated flatly. She swallowed hard. I'm not sure. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to walk back inside and slam the door so hard it shattered every glass in the place. But instead I said, so which is it? Mine or his? I don't know, she said, eyes pleading. There's overlap. But we can find out. I want to find out. I didn't answer. I turned, walked back inside, and came out with a card, my lawyer's business card. I handed it to her. Set up a paternity test, I said. Have the results sent to his office. I don't want updates. I want answers. Only answers. She looked down at the card like it might bite her. And if it's not mine? I asked. She didn't speak. Then we're done here. Officially. Permanently. I still love you, she whispered. I nodded. That's not enough anymore. She walked away. I didn't watch her leave. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. My mind didn't race. It just shut down. I sat on the balcony with a mug of coffee that went cold, listening to the city thrum in the distance. People laughing. Horns honking. Somewhere, a dog barking. Life went on. It always does. 2 days later, I made a call. Ryan. I still had his number saved, though I never meant to use it. I don't even know why I called. Curiosity? Closure? I told myself I wanted the truth, but really, I think I just wanted to see if he'd run. He picked up on the second ring. Hello? It's Landon. Long pause. Look, he said finally, if this is about Allison. It is, I cut in. I'm not here to fight. I just need to know one thing. Another pause. Are you still in contact with her? No, he said quickly. Too quickly. I mean I was. But not anymore. I ended it. I left the firm. I know. He sighed. I didn't plan for this to happen, man. I swear. It started with texts. Jokes. Then one night after drinks, and it got out of control. I told her I wasn't looking for anything real. I didn't need the play-by-play. She says she might be pregnant. Silence. I could almost hear him pale through the phone. Jesus. There's a test coming, I said. You might want to prepare yourself. She said it might be mine? She said it could be mine, I corrected. Another long silence. I didn't want any of this, he said finally. No one ever does, I replied. But here we are. I hung up. That night, Allison texted again. The test is scheduled. Results in a week. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply. I waited. For 7 days, I lived in limbo. I didn't talk about it with anyone. Not my coworkers, not my brother who called just to check in, not even the bartender I'd gotten used to venting to. I just worked. I restored furniture. I took long walks. I tried not to think of what it meant to be tied to someone forever by something neither of us was ready for. A child. Mine? His? Either way, it was a sentence. A decision I didn't get to make. Then the envelope came. No dramatic delivery. No call. Just a manila envelope slid through the slot of my lawyer's office. He called me that afternoon. It's not yours. That's all he said. And that's all I needed. I thanked him. Hung up. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, held the printout in my hand, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for weeks. It wasn't relief. Not exactly. It was finality. It was the end. I filed the divorce papers the next day. She didn't fight. She didn't beg. She just signed them. No calls. No texts. Nothing. We didn't have much to untangle, no kids, no shared business, no house worth splitting. The settlement was clean. My lawyer said he'd rarely seen one move so fast. It was done. Like a pulled tooth. Painful. Bleeding. But gone. The divorce finalized with all the quiet efficiency of a corporate memo. Signatures. Stamps. A short, polite email from my lawyer that simply read, "All matters are now resolved." That was it. 10 years reduced to a PDF file. Allison moved in with her mother across town. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to. I left the firm a week later. Couldn't handle the forced smiles, the pity in my coworkers' eyes, or the awkward silences when someone mentioned Ryan's name. I packed up my office, nodded to a few people, and walked out without fanfare. No farewell lunch. No speech. Just freedom. I relocated to a small coastal town 4 hours south. Quiet place, low rent, ocean air thick with salt. I rented a tiny cottage with creaky floors and chipped paint, but it backed up to a stretch of beach that no one ever seemed to visit. There, I started fixing furniture. Old tables, broken chairs, dressers missing handles, pieces people left behind. I found a rhythm in the work. Wake up with the sunrise, black coffee, sandpaper, with glue. It was honest labor. Simple. Predictable. I didn't talk to many people. Didn't want to. For the first time in years, I was allowed to be still. Not happy, not sad, just still. And that somehow felt like healing. I didn't miss her. That surprised me. I thought I'd ache. Thought I'd fall apart without the rituals of our life, the late-night wine, the shared playlists, the Sunday pancakes. But instead, I felt relief. Not joy. Just the absence of pain. And that was enough. It started with books. The town library was small, just one floor, a couple dozen shelves, and a single librarian who reminded me of someone's kind but exhausted aunt. I started going once a week, borrowing old novels I never had time for before. I liked the quiet. The way no one asked questions. That's where I met Joanna. She taught literature at the community college. Late 30s, widowed, calm in a way that made silence feel like a conversation. We didn't talk much at first. Just exchanged book titles. She'd recommend something with a soft smile, and I'd return it the next week with a one-line review. She never asked about my past. I never asked about hers. One afternoon, she invited me to a poetry reading at a cafe nearby. I almost said no. But something in me, some part untouched by betrayal, said yes. We didn't hold hands that night. Didn't talk about love or loss. We just sat side by side, sipping coffee, listening to strangers read verses about grief and growth and the absurdity of life. When she dropped me off, she said, "It's nice, the way you don't rush to fill the silence." I smiled. I've had enough noise. Over the next few weeks, we started walking together. Along the beach, through town, even in the rain. We never labeled anything. Never kissed. Just existed in a space that didn't need explanation. And slowly, without meaning to, I stopped reliving the betrayal. I stopped waiting for the next red flag, the next lie, the next collapse. With Joanna, there were no games. No declarations. Just presence. And maybe that's what I needed all along. Not fireworks. Not passion. Just stillness. And someone who knew what to do with it.